best in radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And you're listening to the Financial Survival Network's Kerry, Lutz. And hey, hope you got time to listen to some presidential politics, New York State politics, continuing shakeup going on there. We've got former Congressman John LeBoutillier with us, and nobody knows more about what's happening in the once great state of New York than he. John, how are you?
I'm better than Kerry. Hello. I'm better than anybody in Albany is.
Yeah, you think everybody's looking over their shoulder and being very careful what they utter into their telephones or type in their email, right?
I think that's so true, because the U.S. attorney who indicted the Speaker of the Assembly 3 weeks ago, Shelley Silver, this guy, Preet Bharara, when he did that one, he announced, "Stay tuned," implying there are more coming. And, you know, there was a leak a few days later that Dean Skelos, the Republican leader of the state Senate, was under investigation. And I know Dean personally and was elected with him in 1980. And I cannot imagine this guy did anything wrong, but who the hell knows, you know? And I think the nervousness, we've read in the paper that Governor Cuomo is beside himself over this thing, stays up all night, calling hundreds of people around the state every night to find out what they know about what this U.S. attorney is up to. He's obsessed with it.
Yeah, now he doesn't know whether to become a reformer or whether to become a turtle, basically go back into his shell, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it is a problem for him. He wants to run for president. He can't have any taint on. And he tried to clean up, he tried to make it look, which is Cuomo now, with this Moreland Commission that he was investigating corruption in Albany. And then in the middle of that thing, Kerry, he just shuts it right down, closes up shop, and all the investigations that the Moreland is doing are stopped. And that, most people believe, is what's got the U.S. attorney looking around, that Cuomo may have found something and he hid it to protect one of these political leaders. And Preet Bharara, this U.S. attorney, doesn't believe in protecting anybody. And so he's going after anybody and everybody who is connected with anything shady.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So the problem with the Moreland Commission was, if it was just a governor commission, advisory commission, he could set it up and take it down at will. Problem is that he had the Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman, deputize all these members of the commission. So it took on a life of its own. And then the rumor is that they subpoenaed Shelley Silver over his outside income, which evidently was grandiose and monumental. And then Shelley howled like a stuck pig, and they called it off. And obstruction of justice appears to be hanging in the balance, perhaps, against the governor. And he's rightly concerned about it, huh?
I think so. I mean, if they could show that Cuomo knew of some malfeasance and therefore shut the Moreland Commission down rather than pursue and expose that malfeasance, then I'm guessing he would have his own legal jeopardy here. But I'm from afar. I don't know Cuomo, but from afar, I think the guy's too smart to get that close to illegality. That's my own opinion, but we'll find out.
We will we'll know soon. And what amazes me is Preet Bharara is basically serves at the pleasure, at the sufferance of Barack Obama through his Attorney General, Eric Holder. So presumably, before he went diving for dirt or through the dumpsters of all of these Democrats.
Dumpster diving.
Yeah, he'd have to go get permission from Holder. And yet, by all appearances, this seems to be maybe a renegade U.S. attorney here.
Who, by the way, was the chief legal advisor to Senator Schumer before he became the U.S. attorney. And Schumer pushed hard for this guy to get this gig. So in a roundabout way, you could almost say it's Schumer using Preet Bharara to clean out all the other Democratic big shots that stand in Schumer's way. I can remember years ago people telling me Schumer wanted to run for governor, which I don't see because he's built up this seniority in the U.S. Senate. I don't see why he'd give that up. But Power does strange things to people, so we just don't know why this is going on. And I go along with you that Holder would have to give permission for this, but maybe not. Maybe with him being a lame duck, Obama being a lame duck, maybe a guy like Preet Bharara can go out and investigate anybody he wants, whether the president likes it or not. I don't know. It's a good question.
It just has all the makings of independent operation, because there were rumors about this too, by the way, other Democrats in other states being indicted by the U.S. attorneys. And, the Obama administration has been none too anxious to root out corruption on either party, by either party, during its tenure here. And this, you could say they are not fans of Andrew Cuomo. Perhaps they're clearing the deck for an Elizabeth Warren run in 2016, getting rid of the competitors.
Yeah, I never thought if Hillary's going to run, I've never thought that Cuomo would run. Elizabeth Warren, I've always thought is going to run, but that's a separate thing. You can't have two New Yorkers running against each other, and for all intents and purposes, Hillary is a New Yorker, and there's no way Cuomo would run against her in 2016. So that's not going to happen. Now, I want to go back to Albany for a sec. The reason this corruption is so big is something that Congress took on decades ago, and it's the way to go, which is, and now if you're a congressman, you cannot have earned outside income. You can't be a lawyer in a law firm and get a paycheck. Because there are too many conflicts of interest with drawing two paychecks at the same time. In the state assembly and the state senate, they all work part-time in their legislative job and the other part-time in a law firm, business, something. And it is ripe with trouble. That's what Shelley Silver got caught on. He basically did nothing and got millions from whites in Luxembourg. And that's what they're investigating Dean Skelos for, is his partnership in a Long Island law firm. And the question is, they're getting paid. What are they doing for the money? Are they earning the money, or are they opening doors, which would be okay, or are they changing the legislation because their law firm or a client of theirs wants a change? If that's the case, that's illegal.
Yeah, and we see with the law firm there that it's just unbelievable what Silver has done for them. His childhood buddy is on the Court of Appeals, chief administrative judge for the Supreme Court in Manhattan, has given them their own part to hear these asbestos cases. They get the red carpet treatment. They get first crack at the jury pool. It's just remarkable that the clout that they've got or had in that court, evidently now it's being shut down now that the Post blew the whistle on them.
Yeah, they apparently had like a whole separate court just for the whites in Luxembourg cases that were the Sheldon Silver cases. And they just, green lighted them, whatever you call it, right through, and had huge settlements, and the law firm got a big percentage, and Silver got a lot of money for doing nothing other than rigging up the system, I guess, which he couldn't admit to. And then there's the issue why he didn't disclose all this income. That's the other thing. He didn't want the press, I guess, to know, because he didn't disclose it on his financial disclosure forms, and because of that, that's a felony also. Yeah,
he really had it gamed, the whole system. And you're right, it's time to really crack down on this, get rid of all outside income, and really clean the place up, because
they need to do it. They need to, and which would require something that politically has been difficult, but you could do it once, which is they need a pay raise for the legislators so that that's their full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to be their part-time job, then you're going to have much better disclosure on this outside earned income. And I mean every penny of it is going to have to be reported. Who paid it, for what, when, and all that. It's got to all be public. Because otherwise, the cheating will continue. And it's not just one party or the other. It's both political parties. They're all, drinking at the same trough.
Right. It just makes sense to get rid of it once and for all. I think you are correct on that. It's just too tempting, and it's really impossible to ever really eliminate the conflicts. How do you do it? Because look,
you can't.
Yeah, I don't see how. And therefore, you're right. As much as it pains you to give these legislators a raise, especially when the rest of the country is suffering, you can't serve two masters, right?
I really don't think you can. That's the problem. I think this thing, in the old days, somehow they did it. I don't know how they did it. And I guess there was corruption that was unreported. Because back, up till 30 some odd years ago, every had another career. And Congress was only in session at the beginning of the year. And I'm not even sure it was every year it was in session. It might have been every other year. But they did not. There was no such thing as a full-time Congress.
Yeah.
They had farms to run, dentistry offices to preside over. They did everything. And I don't know how much corruption there was back then, but there now we know there's a lot of corruption, and it's so ripe for more of it that something has got to be done. And I don't ever hear anything being done. And then we're talking New York State, but the feds have done a pretty good job. They even have it down now where if I was a congressman and you took me to lunch, if the bill is over like $50, I have to pay for it.
Right.
I can't let you buy stuff for me. They really have clamped down on this after all the scandals of the 70s and 80s, I guess is when they did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes total sense. And really, it's just so out of hand now that something's got to be done. And we're past the point of really looking for Band-Aid approaches now. And especially if Preet Bharara really starts cracking down and we get even more people, more of them indicted. If Skella somehow gets caught up in this, can you imagine?
Yeah, it's the same thing with him. The investigation centered on a law firm on Long Island that he's a partner in.
Yeah,
and he got between 150 and 500 grand last year in outside income from the law firm, which by itself is not illegal. There's nothing wrong with it. But the question is going to be, what did he do for the money? Did he do favors? Did he trade favors for money? If they can prove that, then he's gone.
Right. Yeah. So, and there's how many people have been? There's been over a dozen senators and assemblymen that have been indicted here. It's just remarkable here, John, that the extent of the corruption.
They got one senator, a Republican, who's still in the Senate, but he's under indictment.
Yeah.
But they don't have a rule about if you're indicted, you can stay in the Senate until your trial is done, which in a sense makes some sense. Now, speaking of all that, the previous Republican leader of the Senate was a guy named Joe Bruno from upstate, from Albany,
right?
Saratoga, Albany area. And he was indicted by the U.S. attorney, and he was tried for corruption. And he was originally convicted. He appealed. He appealed throughout the conviction. They retried him again, and he won on retrial. The feds were forced to pay like $14 million for his legal defense to reimburse him. He did lose his Senate seat. He had to quit, as I said. So, but he's been vindicated. He was found not guilty. Everything was thrown out. He's as free as you and me, but he's out all his money. He spent all his money to defend himself. And that bothers me. I mean, an elected official is accused by the Justice Department of criminality. He defends himself successfully, but along the way, because of the investigation, he loses his Senate seat. Where's the fairness in that?
Yeah, that's a bit out of control here. And he was. It was years and years that it went on with Joe Bruno there.
Many years. And they changed the ruling of how they interpret the law now. I forget what it's called. services contract or honest services clause in the law, which is a catch-all for prosecutors to use to nail people. And apparently what it meant was corrupt officials are withholding their honest services.
Right.
And they don't have the right to do it, and so you can prosecute them for it. And that they got a lot of convictions on that. They include Enron. They got people in Enron convicted on that. And now some court, maybe the U.S. Supreme Court, I don't know, revised the interpretation of that honest services clause and tightened it up, and they're having a harder time getting convictions now with this stuff.
All right. Well, these overzealous prosecutors, we know what can happen with them, right?
They want to run for office, including this guy, Preet Bharara. Rumored is he wants to be governor of New York.
Yeah, well, there might not be any choices left, John, because they could all be sitting in jail.
They'll all be in jail, which always reminds me of these two guys in prison, Kerry. They're going through the cafeteria line, plopping some food on their plates, and one guy says to the other, you know, the food was better here when you were governor.
Yeah, well, you know, I can't see Cuomo being enticed by the money, but Cuomo's
I don't think Cuomo's corrupt. I don't like him, but I don't think he's corrupt. He's arrogant. He's got all that. But
yeah, that's for sure.
But if he was picking up signs that Silver was doing something, he had an obligation to either pursue it or turn it over to the U.S. attorney, and instead he just shut it down. And that's where he may be in some trouble. But we're going to find out.
Oh, yeah. I think there's, as Preet Bharara said, stay tuned, right?
Yep. Stay tuned.
And
I'm tuned in every day, Kerry. I'm waiting for another shoe to drop. I think it's hilarious to watch it.
Well, it's the most exciting thing to happen in New York politics since Rudy Giuliani was elected. When
Absolutely
you get down
true.
to it.
Yeah, that's it. There's been nothing exciting in New York politics lately.
It's remarkable because this guy came out of nowhere. Like, he has been indicting people, let's face it, for quite some time. But really, he really just, you didn't expect him to just start doing that. Just take it on himself as a one-man kind of wrecking crew up in Albany. And you know, and I know it's needed it for forever here, right?
Well, I think they consider Albany and the New York legislature to be one of the most corrupt state capitals in the country.
Yep.
That everything is done by, if they put three guys in a room, who are Cuomo, Skelos,
Right.
the guy we were talking about, and Shelley Silver. And they would go in a room and they would do the budget, they would do all the laws, the blah, 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 blah.
Very democratic.
So here
right?
it is.
Real democratic.
Yeah, very democratic. Yep, with a small d. And out of the room they would come, and all the assemblymen and senators would just follow along, which is crazy. Why are we electing these people if they're just followers?
And that's what Bharara's been talking about. Three men in a room. It's really corrupt, and it's undemocratic, and it's not in the Constitution, in the New York Constitution. And it's been going on here, well, since I can remember in New York. It's always been the way it's been done. The leader has disproportionate power. So Shelley Silver, head of the Assembly, Skelos, head of the Senate, and then the governor. And in a way, the governor has the least power of any of them. And because Silver was there so long, he really had the most power. And where did they get off? My goodness.
I don't know, but by the way, we've seen this painting before, because an earlier speaker 20 years ago, Stanley Fink, he went to jail.
Right.
And as we said, the Republican leader of this Republican-controlled Senate, Joe Bruno, he didn't end up in jail, but he ended up out of office and basically wiped out for a decade or whatever it's been. The governors here, other than Spitzer because of client number 9, the governors, unlike Connecticut and New Jersey, where they seem to be quitting every year or two, in New York, they're pretty safe, it seems.
Yeah. Remarkable. It's just an incredible thing to see. And we got a couple minutes. So take on 2016. Scott Walker is gaining traction, it appears, or at least he's got a really good behind-the-scenes PR team. The name is coming out there, and he's the strong, silent type, it appears to me, kind that women seem to like, right?
I think so far there's everything to like about Scott Walker and nothing not to like. I think that, first of all, he's the only Republican candidate for president that can do this. He can have one foot in the Tea Party camp and one foot in the establishment, GOP establishment camp, gets along with all of them, bridges that gap, which is paralyzing us up on Capitol Hill. We're not getting anything done now that we control both the House and the Senate. We're not getting anything done, Kerry, because they can't bridge the gap. Tea Party and the establishment are not getting along.
Mm-hmm.
But Walker can bridge the gap. But here's what I worry about for him. Nothing to do with him. It's Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush, who's obviously going to run. The more people look at him, like they did last week in Detroit, the more they realize he is a weak political candidate.
Right.
He may be a good governor. He may have been good in Florida, but he's a bad candidate for public. He doesn't speak well. He has no fire in the belly. By the way, there's been 3 Bushes running for president. The father, obviously, his older brother, and now Jeb.
Right.
And believe it or not, they used to say how the father was a bad candidate. But if you look at videotapes, the father was the better of the 2 George Bushes, father and son. The father was better. And now that we take a look at Jeb, I'm telling you, the father's better than him, too. That in order of competence as a political candidate now, the father's number 1, George W. second, and a distant third is Jeb Bush. He's doing badly on the stump. He gave this big speech in Detroit the other day. Very unimpressive. People were not particularly pleased with it. He's not a great political figure. And even with that name and the name ID, he's only getting like 16% in New Hampshire and similarly low numbers around the rest of the country. So he's not fitting the bill that the Republican voters want. They want someone else. They don't really dig him.
Amazing. So Scott Walker is looking better all the time. He's a fighter, but he's not a fighter who alienates people other than unions and hardcore Democratic, right? Partisans.
Well, yeah, but here's what I worry about for him. It's nothing to do with him. It's that Jeb Bush is being given, I mean, really, hundreds, plural, of millions of dollars for his campaign.
Yeah.
And he's a bad candidate. They shouldn't be giving him the money until they take a look at him and say, wait a second, this guy is not a good candidate. But they're giving him the money.
The name.
He's going to have a lot of dough, and here's what he's going to do. He can't win the nomination with his positions, his strategy, and his campaign skills.
Right.
But he can destroy every other Republican who climbs above him. Mm-hmm. And I think he will. And I think the first up will be Scott Walker. I think Scott Walker in the next few months is going to get ripped head to toe in a creative way where there's no linkage to Bush, but Bush's people will be doing it. And then the next guy that comes along in the middle of this year to challenge Jeff, they'll whack him too. And I think that's what's coming. And I think it's bad for the party. Remember Reagan's 11th commandment, thou shalt not speak ill of a fellow Republican. Mm-hmm. Well, the Bushes didn't get that memo.
Yeah, they didn't.
Because in South Carolina in 2000, when they're running against John McCain for the presidential nomination, McCain has adopted a little girl from Bangladesh. Mm-hmm. And she's a sweet little girl back in 1980, and she's, dark-skinned. And next thing you know, in the South Carolina GOP primary, the George W. Bush campaign is slandering this girl and McCain, right, and implying that it was really bad. And if they would do that to McCain, they're going to do similar stuff towards, towards Scott Walker first, and then anybody else who dares to pop up and get in the way of Jeb Bush.
But one thing that Scott Walker has going for him, he took on those unions. They're the nastiest fighters on the planet, and the hard left of the Democratic Party. He beat them without nary saying a word. So I wouldn't write him off so quick. I agree. Not easy to beat a union at their own game without just giving them enough rope to hang themselves. Brilliant strategy. I didn't think it was going to work. He fooled me. So, but I do agree with you. And I think there is a tremendous built up resentment and Bush fatigue in this country. So ain't over till it's over, John. But hey, just give us your website and how we follow you on the web.
Okay, it's johnlebout.com. JohnLebout.com.
All right.
And you can watch my show every Sunday night on Fox at 7:30 East Coast time. Political insiders to Pat Caddell, Doug Schoen, and myself. And please watch.
Hey, maybe I'll get you and Pat Caddell on the show one day. It would be great to have you too.
I would do it, but getting a hold of Pat's impossible. He is the worst about returning calls, keeping appointment. We could do me and Doug, but Pat.
All right. That would be cool. And hey, just go over to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. You'll find the link to John's site right there in the show notes, as always. And John, we will talk to you again soon. You be well.
Thank you, Kerry. Same to you.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.